Hi guys, I'm Gasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome to another coffee time and another movie recommendation video. Today I'm going to be talking to you about some thriller and horror movies that you can find currently streaming on Netflix.
It's coffee time.
So I have realized that I have so many thriller slash horror movies on Netflix, or some of them even on Amazon Prime, on my watch list, and they're all Spanish, and I have already watched a bunch of them and I have not made a separate movie review of some of them. So I thought, you know, why not bring you some movie recommendations, tell you which ones I liked, which ones I didn't like. So in this list there's going to be movies that I really enjoyed, others that I didn't love so much, but maybe it is something for you, something that you are interested in and you would still like to try. We all have different tastes. So before we go to that list, if you love horror, if you love movies and collectibles, please consider subscribing to the channel and also hit the notification bell before you leave. So instead of organizing the movies by rating, I just decided to organize them by release year. There are a couple of movies on this list that personally they were not for me, but I know that a lot of people really enjoyed them, so let's get to the list. Also, most of these movies can be found on Netflix. The majority of them are Netflix exclusives, and the other ones I've been able to stream them on Netflix, so hopefully you guys also have access to them. So the first movies that I would like to talk to you about came out in 2016, and the first one is The Invisible Guest. The original title of this Spanish mystery thriller is Contratiempo, which literally means setback. A young businessman wakes up in a locked hotel room next to the body of his dead lover. He hires a prestigious lawyer to defend him, and over the course of the night, they work together to find out what happened. So this movie has been one of my favorite Spanish Netflix thrillers, and I just love this one because it just felt like a great whodunit scenario. We have this guy that wakes up and realizes his lover is dead and the police is coming for him and he doesn't know what to do, and he claims innocence and he hires a lawyer, and we basically follow the conversation between him and the lawyer, trying to figure out what happened, trying to figure out how they're gonna defend him, all of these things. But it is just so much more than that. I firmly believe if you love the movie Knives Out, you're going to enjoy this film as well. Even though you might think, oh, this plot, this kind of film, I've seen it before, and even though a couple of things you might see coming, it has some really interesting twists and turns, and this one is definitely worth a watch. The other one that I watched and enjoyed for the most part, also from 2016, is Boy Missing. The original title is Sequestro, which literally means kidnapping. When her son's alleged kidnapper is released for lack of solid evidence, a reputable and well-known attorney takes matters into her own hands with unintended and spectacularly disastrous consequences. A lawyer gets a call from the police and they tell her they found her son walking disoriented in the middle of the street, and the kid claims that he was kidnapped but he was able to escape. Now, when the mother realizes that the police are not able to catch whoever kidnapped her son, so the mother decides that she's going to do anything to find out who kidnapped her son and get some justice. But the problem, as we mostly know in this type of thrillers, is that the more that you snoop around, the more that you start to getting on other people's businesses, the more you're putting yourself in danger. The film was really fast-paced and you have to be really paying attention to all of the different dialogues in order not to miss something and be able to connect the dots. Now, it does have a couple of interesting twists and turns, but I ended up giving this film only 2.5 out of 5. I think it is worth a watch, but it didn't completely blow me away, even though I did enjoy some of the last, twists that they delivered. The next one might be a little bit controversial, not because of the movie that it is, but because of my rating and because this movie, you know, it didn't work for me as well as it worked apparently for other people, and that is Veronica from 2017. A Spanish supernatural horror film loosely based on true events from the 1991 Vallecas case, where Stefania Gutierrez Lázaro died mysteriously after she used a Ouija board. So this movie in some ways is going to be your typical supernatural movie, and it's going to fulfill all of the cliches. Like, it has all of them, and that is not really something that bothered me. I have seen other movies with a lot of cliches that I've really enjoyed, and this one in particularly does a good job when it comes to create some nice like atmosphere. It's mostly in the middle of the night, and we find our main character Veronica that decides to play with the Ouija board, and of course that's going to have some consequences. As we all know, horror movie, Ouija board, supernatural, you kind of know what to expect from this type of movie. Even though it had some creepy moments, some violent moments, and I know for a lot of people it did give them the scares that they wanted, for me it didn't work so well. I just thought it was an average supernatural film, and that is why I only gave this movie a 2 out of 5 stars. For me that means you can watch it if you want, but you know, it is a movie that for me was nothing special. It might be because the type of movies with the Ouija board, they really have to be good to for me to give them a higher rating, because I think I've seen this done so many times before that even though the atmosphere worked, the CGI was also not really on point, to be honest, in this film. And so, you know, if you really love these kind of supernatural Ouija board movies, then maybe give it a try. The next one is a movie that I really enjoyed, and part might be because I do like the director's movies. Alex de la Iglesia, he's a very well-known director in Spain, and he directed The Bar from 2017. A Spanish black comedy thriller film, directed, produced and co-written by Alex de la Iglesia. The movie is set in Madrid, and it has the typical ensemble cast that we know from his movies. In downtown Madrid, a series of mysterious gunshots trap a motley assortment of people in a decrepit bar. This movie was so much more fun than I expected. We are basically in the middle of Madrid, and there is a bunch of random people in a bar when some shootings start outside, and they find themselves trapped in this bar, unable to go out, and things escalate quickly outside, and soon they're going to realize they're not allowed to leave the bar. And as it happens with this type of movies, you end up getting to know the characters. They're all very different, they're all shady, they all have reasons for, you know, being responsible for things, mysteries, secrets. And I just love how this movie escalates and how it is a great exploration of character and human beings. And I think if you like this kind of black comedy, you're going to enjoy this film. But don't expect a super serious thriller or horror movie. It's kind of like a survival story in a way, but I thought it was really well done, especially because of the character development. The next one is a movie that I thought the plot, the idea behind it was amazing, but the execution was not all there, and so I only gave this one a 2 out of 5 stars, but I would still recommend you to give it a try. That is The Warning. A 2018 Spanish thriller film based on the novel of the same name by Paul Penn. A man discovers a mathematical pattern behind deaths that occurred at the same location and sets out to warn the next victim. What I really enjoyed about this movie is that it is one of those mindfuck kind of movies, and I absolutely love that, especially with thrillers. And I just thought that the idea worked for some time, and then it became repetitive, and this being a full-length movie, it kind of didn't work as well towards the end as I would have hoped, because at the beginning I was really invested with it. The main plot here is that X years a person dies at the same spot, and it's always a death under, you know, questionable circumstances, and so somebody notices and is trying to figure it out why this happens, who's going to be the next victim, how to warn the next victim. And like I said, this plot it just sounded amazing to me, but the execution didn't work so well. And there was also a character that it was a little bit annoying to me, making questionable decisions. And yeah, I just loved the idea, but the movie was a little bit disappointing. Now let's go to a movie that has a really interesting concept, and I was intrigued the moment that it was announced, and that is Mirage. The original title is Durante la Tormenta, which basically means during the storm, and it is a 2018 mystery drama. A space-time continuum glitch allows Vera to save a boy's life 25 years in the past, but somehow results in the loss of her daughter, and Vera must fight to get her back. We are basically here following two stories in different timelines. On the one side, we have Nico in 1989 during an electric storm. One night, he leaves the house and he gets hit by a car. And then we have Vera in the present time that moves into Nico's old house and finds his old tapes and realizes what happened to him. This is a very interesting, intricate plot, so you have to be really paying attention. At the beginning, the film felt a little bit predictable and common, but that changes quickly after the 20-30 minutes mark, and then you realize how much more there is to the plot and the different stories of the characters. Even though this kind of plot, this kind of story has been done before, I felt the movie was engaging, it was really entertaining, and I ended up giving it a 3-star rating. So I would definitely recommend it to you, especially if you like this kind of like you know, different timelines, being able to change the past, what happens in the present if we try to change the past, all of those kind of things. The next one is probably the biggest disappointment and the one that has the lowest rating in this list, and that is Twin Murders: The Silence of the White City from 2019. It is a 2019 Spanish action-adventure psychological mystery crime thriller film. The film was adapted from a novel written by Eva Garcia Sainz, and it tells the story of a detective that returns to Vitoria, Spain, to investigate murders which mimic those of a serial killer who's about to be released from prison. So this is a very typical kind of detective investigation story in which we have a serial killer that follows a modus operandi, and this killer has been active for, I believe, 2 decades, and they call these detectives to try to help them and catch this guy. And it felt like one of those, you know, thrillers that is just super predictable. The acting was not all there, the plot was messy, it was just not good. And you know, the book, I have heard, I have not read it myself, but I have heard people saying the book was so good and the movie was so disappointing. So I guess if you're interested in this kind of, I guess, sort of like a Angels of Demons, Da Vinci Code kind of style, but Spanish, I would then recommend you to pick up the book, because this movie was just not great. I ended up giving it only 1.5 out of 5, which for me means you can totally pass this movie. I just felt like the story was just too entangled in a weird way, like it was not satisfying, and I would definitely not really waste my time with this movie, like personally. The next one, in number 8, we have a movie that was disappointing to me because I do like this Spanish actor Mario Casas, and even though the plot of this movie was something that I have seen done before, I was kind of excited to check it out and it disappointed me. But anyways, that is The Paramedic from 2020. A Spanish thriller film that follows the story of a paramedic that, after suffering a serious accident, starts to get obsessed with the idea that his girlfriend is being unfaithful to him. So we follow this paramedic called Angel, and one day doing his work in the ambulance, they have an accident. The ambulance makes a couple of turns, and with the bad luck that he ends up in a wheelchair and his life turns around forever. He starts to really have a lot of fights and a lot of problems with his girlfriend. He starts to suspect that she's cheating on him, and he starts to change his behavior. I had different problems with this movie, but I feel like the biggest one was that this is a movie that was purely more based on character development than plot, to be honest, even though it does have a couple of twist. I don't know if you can call it twist because you can see it coming from like far away, but the problem for me was the character development, because there was basically none. And in this type of movie, it is what it's supposed to be carrying the film. Like recently I had that experience with Run from 2020, because it is a movie that is not really plot based, it's more character based, and the characters were so strong I didn't even care that I saw some twists coming. And with this film, the characters were not working and the plot was not working. The problem as well was that this is a thriller that was not gripping. It was not giving you really much tension. It was getting annoying at some point, because this is one of those movies that you can totally tell what's gonna happen, and it was just starting to get on my nerves, to be honest. The last two movies that we have to talk about are 2020 releases that I have mentioned before on my channel. I even made spoiler-free reviews, so I'm not gonna take too much time to talk about this ones. But of course the first one, and I could not make this video without naming it, is The Platform. The original Spanish title, El Hoyo, could be translated to The Hole, and it is a 2019 Spanish social science fiction horror film. In the future, prisoners housed in vertical cells watch as inmates in the upper cells are fed while those below starve. I just felt this movie was so important as a social commentary to reflect as well how we behave as a society, and I absolutely love the idea of this prison in which there are vertical cells and there is a platform full with food that starts up and starts going down, so that the people on the lower levels barely get any food, if they get any at all. And I just love the character exploration about this film. I loved everything about it. I loved the atmosphere. I loved some twists and turns we got. It was just the ending that was not as satisfying for me. However, I feel like this movie deserves a watch and deserves praise for being so original. And the last one that I would like to talk to you about is another one that the more I think about it, the more I like it. I had given this movie originally 2.5 and I have raised it to a 3 because I keep, you know, reminding myself of things that the movie did that were unexpected, that were kind of trying to bend your typical conventional horror stories, and I ended up rounding it up to a 3, and that is Don't Listen. The original title of this movie is Voces, which literally means voices, and the reason why the movie was titled like this is because a family that moves around a lot with their kid, and they basically restore houses and they move out, resell it. They buy a house that is known as the House of the Voices. So when they move in there to renovate it and flip it, their kid starts to claim that he hears voices. Now, the parents at the beginning just think that the kid is acting out because they're moving around so much, you know, and he's having trouble with moving from house to house all the time. But soon they realize that their problem might be bigger than that, and they end up even calling somebody that's gonna help them with the paranormal. I would recommend you to go into this movie without reading the synopsis, because the official synopsis of the film everywhere online already spoils something that I am consciously not mentioning. And what I would like to tell you about this film is that you begin the movie thinking this is your conventional haunted house story, ghost story, supernatural, and it just keeps turning into different kind of movies that you were not expecting, and I think that is part of the charm of the film. There are really good, creepy, atmospheric, really good executed creepy moments. And another thing that I really loved about this film is that I did not expect that ending. I didn't think they were gonna go there, and they did. And I always say this movie reminds me of The Conjuring, but kind of Spanish version of it, a little bit in some ways, and I really enjoyed it. So I definitely recommend you to check this one out. I've also seen good reviews by other people that have actually really enjoyed it. I give it a 3 out of 5, which for me means this movie is definitely worth a watch. So yeah, definitely check it out if you haven't yet. Alright you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. There are many Spanish thrillers and and horror movies that I have still not checked out on Netflix and Amazon that I have on my watch list. So I'm gonna watch more and come back to you once I have another list of around 10 movies to talk about. Let me know down below if you enjoyed this type of video where I don't recommend you only the movies that I gave the highest rating, but like movies in general that follow a specific pattern, genre, themes, stuff like that, because I can definitely do that. You know, sometimes I feel like if I only recommend you or talk about the ones that I really gave a high rating, then there might be other movies that you might enjoy, that you might find appealing, that I'm not mentioning just because they were not my cup of tea. So that's what I decided to make this video, to really go through all of those 10 thriller horror movies from Netflix that are in Spanish, to give you kind of like a wider variety of movies and not just mention the ones that I loved. I hope that that made sense for you guys. Anyways, let me know down below. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. I really appreciate your support. Please give the video a big thumbs up, and I hope to see you all guys in the next coffee time. Bye.